This is Donna Cooper. I'm the Executive Director of Public Citizens for Children and Youth. And we are so grateful to the teams of Philadelphia for being willing to spend some time with us this morning to talk with elected officials from the U.S. Congress, from the Pennsylvania legislature and city council about the concerns they have as they sort of come out of the COVID crisis, enter the summer, and look forward to starting school next year. Many of the students who are with us here today are seniors and have an awful lot to say about what's important to them for the younger classmen behind them and their younger brothers and sisters. And some of them are also rising kids. So we're very grateful that you're all here today. I want to remind everybody that we are on Facebook Live and on Zoom. And we have muted people's mics for the purposes of making sure we can hear the teens, and then for the lawmakers, when we call on you, you'll be able to answer. But that way, everybody can hear really clearly. So this is PCCY's 4th Teen Town Hall meeting. We listen to young people in Bucks County, Montgomery County, Delaware County, and now Philadelphia County. And what we've learned is really important information about what students find as particularly important to them for the value of public education. And we think that this information is really helpful for lawmakers to understand the essential role that schools play and what they think is really important, what the kids think, right? And so I want to also say that we're so grateful that the School District of Philadelphia helped us reach out to students. We're especially grateful to Clara Landau at the Philadelphia School Board. We know that Dr. Maria McColgan is with us this morning, and I believe so is our school board chair, Joyce Wilkerson. So we are extremely grateful that the school board this new school board has been particularly interested in hearing from students, putting students first, and it's just terrific to have a local school board that really can echo the sentiments of the residents of this city in the policies that they put together. So to the school board members who are with us today, thank you so much for being here. Now, I can't see everybody who's on here, but I would like to know if Congressman Evans is with us, and if so, speak.
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. So thank you so much. I want to kick us off today. Members of the delegation in the U.S. Congress have an awful big load on their shoulders because they are actively passing bills to help the states and localities recover from COVID. And they have an ability to do that, unlike states and cities, which must have a balanced budget. And the U.S. House of Representatives has been leading the charge to deliver resources. And one of the people that's been doing that for us here in Philadelphia is Congressman Dwight Evans, who, as we all know, has been a champion for quality public education. So Congressman Evans, we're so pleased you're here today, and we'd love to ask you to kick off this event, sharing with us something that's going on in Washington.
I have to tell you, ridiculous.
Thank you,
Ridiculous.
Congressman Evans.
Oh, thank you. Am I unmute? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. I thank you, PCCY first, and I thank the young people for participating. I have said consistently, this is your democracy, meaning that you own it lock, stock, and barrel. And the greatest title and the strongest title is citizen. It's not congressman, it's not president, it's not senator, it is citizen. So you as future participants in the political process. So there's 3 basic issues I want to say, and I'll talk about the macro picture relating to Washington. First, no one on this Zoom call ever been involved in a pandemic. No one. Last pandemic was 17, 18, 20. So that's the first thing. So this is a first experience for all of us and what we're going through. The second aspect is this is the same year of the census. Every 10 years in the Constitution, we have to do a census. A census dictates your political representation, and it dictates the distribution of the money. So what happens in the federal government, the state government, the city government is by if you are counted. So the census is also, so there's the census, there's the pandemic, and last but not least, there's a presidential election this year. 5 months from now, there will be potentially a new president who will go in office. So obviously that will have an effect. I voted the first time when I was 18 years of age, 1972. That's understandable. It's the first time that I've ever voted was in 1972. So the voting participation process has a lot to do with all the things I'm gonna say to you. So in terms of Washington, what did we do? The first bill we passed, March the 4th, was the CARES Act, $2.2 trillion. That's exactly what we expended. It dealt with schools, transportation, retirement fund, not retirement, unemployment, you name it, it dealt with it. That was the CARES. The second act we have passed, which is now in contention with the Senate, is $3 trillion. So 2.2 trillion in terms of the CARES Act, 3 trillion in terms of HEROES Act. And the third piece is the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is the central bank. That is the element that talks a lot about forecasting on our monetary policy. And basically the chairman of the Federal Reserve has said, it's gonna be a little while before we get through this relating economics. I strongly believe there's a direct connection between public health and economics. They are not separated from each other because your health and your existence of your health is your ability to work, to play, to go to school, because you must be healthy. And unfortunately, in this pandemic, people of color, African American, Latino, Asian, Native Americans have been more affected. Why? Because a lot of times in what you call first workers, essential workers, they have been affected. Grocery store operators, SEPTA bus drivers, nurses, people who are on the front line, people who are your parents, who your relatives are. So in Washington, what we have attempted to do is to address the people who mostly have been affected. Now, it's debatable how well we have done with that, and you always got a right to debate that. But the fact of the matter is, that's what we have attempted to do. So first and foremost, we've attempted to do the CARES Act and the HEROES Act, pandemic, election, census. We got all those things. And you as young people, and on top of that, it's been disruptive to you regarding delivering school, delivering education, where your graduations have not taken place, where you go. But yet, in spite of all that, I say to you, there's opportunity. There's opportunity to reimagine what this democracy is all about. And that's in your hands. To reimagine what are the things we can do and how we can make a difference. So again, I'm gonna stop there and I thank you and I'll open up for any questions.
Well, Congressman, thank you so much. And I know that you continue to fight for us, and you'll hear from the students today. Just to level set, in addition to what the Congress did, we have many state reps and state senators with us today, and I think all of us in Philadelphia owe them an extraordinary debt of gratitude, as well as to the governor for making sure that among all the things that were cut to enact a state budget, the funding for our schools was not cut from the level that they were funded this year. And I would imagine Pennsylvania is one of the few states that will be able to say that in these days. And so while there are rising school costs and we have extraordinary needs, still the fact that our lawmakers fought for our schools and that we had a bipartisan consensus behind the schools and our governor supported that effort is just, you know, I've been working on school funding for 25 years, and this is the first time I have extraordinary confidence and inspiration by the courage of our elected officials in Harrisburg, and want to thank them on behalf of everybody that's participating in this call. By the way, we're getting close to 200 people being with us today. I would like to ask all the panelists if you could turn your cameras on, because while you're all here, we want to take a picture so that we can make sure those of you who are panelists are all with us today and people know that. I also want to say that the fight for schools continues, and Congressman Evans, so much of what we're going to talk about today really will be about how the federal government can continue to step up to meet the facilities needs of our districts, the special education needs that remain unfunded, technology needs, and other COVID-related costs that are critical for the school district to open in a way that gives our students a robust education, and especially since so much time was lost this year. Before I introduce our elected officials, we are going to kick off with hearing from a few students, starting with a student from Abraham Lincoln High School, Doha Ibrahim. And some of you might know her because she serves as a student representative on the Philadelphia School Board. So the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you. My name is Doha. I'm a student at Abraham Lincoln School. I am also the student representative for the Board of Education at the Philadelphia School District. The class of 2020 has demonstrated to be an exceptional group of students. We started kindergarten in 2007, the year the Great Recession hit, and we have felt its impact throughout our schooling. In Philadelphia, this means that we have spent much of our education in classrooms with too many students, in schools without enough nurses and counselors, and learning under leaky roofs. This is a quote of myself from what I have said at City Council hearing last week. But my situation is very unique. I moved from Canada to Philadelphia when I was in 8th grade. I noticed a major difference in my community, my city, and my education that I was receiving. The first couple of nights, I found it a challenge to sleep due to fireworks sounds outside of my home. But then weeks passed, and then they were no longer known as fireworks, but actual gunshots. This made me worry about my family and walking to school early in the morning or late in the afternoon due to my involvement in clubs. I started to compare the difference between living back home in Canada and here. Unfortunately, instead of saying goodbye, Philadelphians say stay safe, or instead of hanging out with my friends after school, I find them at work working late night shifts to support their families and make sure that there's food on the table. You all wonder why students are not speaking up. It's because we worry if there will be no roof over our heads tomorrow, or if we will have enough money to pay our water bills to shower in hot water. The majority of the parents I know work 2 to 3 jobs and still live paycheck to paycheck. You see, students come to school because it's a clean and safe space for them. They get fed and they catch up on their sleep before heading to work once the bell rings. But they are jeopardizing their education and not receiving good grades on state exams due to home responsibilities. Before you consider cutting a dime from our budget, why won't you take the time to walk down the streets of the most dangerous spots in Philadelphia, where students live, where you find walking like zombies due to the opioid crisis, or finding parents trading their children's valuable items for a bottle of alcohol. Or you see young children learning to steal just for the sake of filling up their empty stomachs. This is our reality. Without the proper funding, we will not be able to continue to provide support for 200,000 students. We will have to lay off more staff every school year. These staff include teachers, counselors, and administration who became mentors, a shoulder to cry on when things get difficult at home, and another parent for each child attending a public school. A program like CTE, Career Technical Education, or English language learning classes for new immigrant students will start to be removed, which will be terrible since I've been part of CTE and it taught me to budget my money, file my own taxes, and apply to jobs with a proper resume. Sports that keep students engaged and on track to graduate will eventually lose funding. And in this case, losing funding means seeing a decrease in student attendance and student engagement. We can't allow these budget cuts to take place. We can't allow these budget cuts to be a reason a child will have their favorite class, sport, or club removed. We can't allow these budget cuts to be a reason a staff member who became a pillar into a student's life to lose their job. And we can't allow the students of tomorrow to replicate the cycle of the parents of today. And this all starts with education. Don't cut our education future. Thank you for your time.
We are so proud of you, Doha, for being on the school board and being such an eloquent representative of the reality of our students. For the lawmakers who are on, we're going to hear for about 3 more students, and then we'll get questions to you, and you'll be able to respond to all of the points being raised by the students. Ranim Albarkawi, I'm sure I said that wrong, who is a student from Masterman, is next. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ranim Albarkawi, and I'm a senior at Masterman High School. Educational funding should never be something we compromise on, and school and what it can provide is one of the most important influences in every young person's life. In my own personal experience, the programs and school staff that would be the most vulnerable if there was a lack of funding have been the most important, especially when figuring out my plans after high school. As a first-generation college student, that entire world seemed overwhelming. I didn't know what steps to take or where to begin. Of course, it was my counselor, Miss Abney, that first started the conversation my junior year of high school. It began with what schools I was interested in and what tests I needed to take, all things I shrugged off prior to that meeting. In fact, I was so unwilling to think about college that after I was done testing, I made a personal decision not to begin my applications before winter break. Miss Abney got a whiff of that and acted immediately. She pulled me out of a few classes before winter break and made me work in her office. I can't tell you how grateful I was for that, because that entire process was so much harder than I could have ever anticipated and would have been way too overwhelming to go through alone. Thankfully, I was accepted to college, but that definitely would not have happened without Miss Abney. For so many kids, counselors help point them in a direction, whether it's technical school, a gap year, college, or anywhere in between. They help kids come up with a plan, and without them, so many of us, including myself, would be lost. We are just getting out of a budget crisis, and it was awful. Teachers, counselors, nurses, librarians, and so many other staff that have been essential to schools were laid off. Programs and extracurriculars were cut. Every school had out-of-date technology, buildings, and textbooks, as opposed to our counterparts in other districts that could afford more local funding. As you make your decision, I want you all to remember that it only takes one person to change the course of somebody's life. You're not always going to connect to the science teacher or the math teacher whose class you're failing, but you are going to connect to the people you choose to be with. The music teacher who spends hours showing you how to play an instrument, the sports coach who pushes you to be a better and more driven person on and off the field, or like in my case, the student government sponsor that teaches you how to have a voice. By cutting school funding, you limit a child's access to support, and by doing that, you limit their future. The question should never be how much can we take away, but always how much can we add. We need to show young people that we care about them so that they grow up and they have the same opportunities that we all have. Thank you all for being here and listening today. This is always the first step to a greater future, and that is all I have to say.
Thank you, Ranim. And I'm already convinced, Congressman Evans, that we probably need to have a congressional hearing where all of these children can speak. And the point that they started school at the beginning of the Great Recession and they have such eloquence today is really a testament to the school district, their parents, and the resilience of our students. We know that a third of the students in Philadelphia attend charter schools. We're very happy that Imere Williams is here today from Boys Latin Charter. He is also a member of a student representative on the school board. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. So, my name is Imere Williams. I'm a senior at Boys Latin Philadelphia Charter School, and I've served as a student representative on the Philadelphia Board of Education for the past year. Being a student that was born and raised in the inner city, I've experienced many trials and tribulations. This is the reality for many students across the district as well. When you live in the inner city, you're subjected to poverty, violence, drug activity, and nonstop police activity. Students who live in the inner city live paycheck to paycheck, have lost many family members to gun violence, have been constantly harassed by police or by law enforcement. School may be the only place where students can escape from these hard realities. School and learning was my escape. It kept my mind off the fact that my own father was incarcerated and later shot 7 times just blocks away from where I currently live, Only after a year, he was released. Thank God he survived. If funding is cut, many students are going to unfathomably suffer. They're not going to have quality education, and they will lack the safe space needed to give them the chance to escape, like I did. Because I was blessed with dedicated teachers who gave to their classrooms out of their own pocket, I was given a good enough education to succeed, and later became the first African-American male to be appointed to the Philadelphia Board of Education, and will become the first person in my family to go to college. Malcolm X said, education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for today. Please give other students like me the opportunities that I was afforded by giving Philadelphia schools adequate funding to allow students to succeed. Thank you.
Interesting that we, in many ways in Philadelphia, we think that the charter world and the traditional public school world are so far apart, but our students have the same message. So thank you so much for delivering that message. Two more students, Lilla Stall from Science Leadership Academy.
Hi, my name is Lilla Stall. I'm a sophomore at Science Leadership Academy. I have had the amazing opportunity to participate in both middle school and high school debates. It has truly helped me grow.
Hey, Lilla, do you wanna, we can't hear you very well. Do you wanna?
It has helped me improve my public speaking skills. I've also had the ability to learn
Lilla, we can't hear you very well, so I think what I might want you to do is call on the phone or log back in and we'll come back to you. I apologize about that. There's a technical difficulty, so try and Zoom back in. We're going to hear from Daniyah Richardson from the Philadelphia High School for Girls, or as we call it in Philly, Girls High.
Hi, my name's Daniyah Richardson. I'm a senior at Girls High. I wanted to really talk about like my experience at high school because I'm also a first generation college student. So I will be attending Penn State in the fall if everything works out. But I wanted to talk about how like if I look back at how if I was walking back into Girls High my first day of high school and I look back at what experiences I did and how I joined things or like I like faced my fears throughout high school, and it was like with the help of staff members and also like the community outside of school. So it's like with school this year I had the chance to join an ethics bowl team. Without the help of the staff from my school and like the staff and students at UPenn, I wouldn't have had the opportunity this past February to join a regional competition. And without their help, I wouldn't have been able to understand that I was able to learn what I wanted to be in the near future. Throughout high school, I had many opportunities that helped me understand who I was, understand how to speak up, how to be who I am without changing myself for everyone else. So with the help of many staff at my school, I was able to learn how to speak up. I was able to join clubs where I was able to learn how to publicly speak instead of me talking really low or like having a voice that like was shut down as soon as I started talking. And when I look back, I didn't just join my ethics bowl team, but I joined sports. I had clubs. I did AP programs. I also took dual enrollment classes at Lilla Stall University. And me being a first generation student, I didn't know what that was at all. I didn't know like how a college situation could go. I didn't know what taking dual enrollment classes would do for me or joining specific clubs or even sports. But now I look back and the person who I am today couldn't have been without the help of the staff at my school or the many opportunities that the counselors, the nurse, or just in general that I had just because people at my school knew who I was or I had the opportunity because I was able to voice my opinion on many things.
Beautifully said. And I have to say that to Daniyah and Ranim, who attend elite schools in Philadelphia, you know, we sort of take for granted the amount of support it takes to succeed in a school like Girls High or Masterman. And we focus a lot on the neighborhood high school kids, and just knowing the important role that even in the best of our schools, students rely so heavily on the support of teachers and clubs and extracurricular activities. You know, that's a really important message, because given what your supports need to be, and the students who haven't been able to be in those kinds of extraordinary environments, just tells us so much more about what the kids in the neighborhood high schools and the citywide admits also need. So thank you so much for sharing that. So we have 4 students who have questions for our lawmakers. And so we're going to hear from them and then open this up to lawmakers. Victoria Tobing from Furness High School is with us. And if Lila, if you're back on, please enter in the chat and I'll know we can call on you. But I'm going to start now with the questions from Victoria from Furness.
Hello, my name is Victoria Tobing and I am a sophomore at Furness High School. So my friends and teachers create a community and a family that has become increasingly important to me during my time at Furness. It has been interesting to see how others are managing this uncertain time, and it has made me concerned about how my peers will adjust to being out of quarantine. I have noticed that throughout my time at Furness that some of my peers with health conditions struggle with air quality and others are impacted by overall building conditions. My questions are, how will the need for more support be addressed and provided for me and my peers? Will opportunities for students face-to-face interactions be provided so that students do not continue to feel isolated? And how will students be supported individually in creating a healthy and safe environment for all going into next year? Thank you for your time.
Great question. I'm going to kill this name, I think. Honeyeh from Tech Ferrari High School.
Hey, it's Honeyeh, but it's okay. My name is Honeyeh, and I'm a senior at Tech Ferrari Charter High School. Now that schools have gone online completely, students are learning how to teach themselves when the teacher is not around. And this is benefiting them when they go to college or when they go into their careers. I wanted to know, how do you think the transition would be when the students go back to the school physically?
Could you just restate your part of your question, the last sentence again? It was a little bit of breakup. How do we feel what?
How do you think the transition would be when the students go back to the school physically?
Okay, great. So does that mean, what do you expect, right? What do you hope? Good. Jose Torres from George Washington High School.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jose Torres. I'm from George Washington High School. I'm a senior. It was difficult for me sometimes to move into different schools every time. But my question is, what can each of you do fight for students more in the future?
So how will you fight for us? Great, thank you. And Gary Nair from Central High.
Hi, my name is Godi. So basically, a major part of this whole coronavirus pandemic and transitioning to online school is the fact that because it's all technology, not all kids are being able to participate in everything because they might not have good Wi-Fi or they might not have the resources like computers to join the classes. So my question was, for the students who were not able to join their classes due to their own personal issues, will they be able to get resources next year so they won't fall behind in their classes? And will the curriculum change so then all students are on the same page?
Tough questions. Thank you so much. I see that Lila has rejoined us. Before we get the responses from our lawmakers, Lila has prepared a statement for them. So I want to give her another chance, see if the audio works. Lila.
Hi, can you guys hear me better now or no?
We still have a problem hearing you. Do you really know how to solve that? But let us reach out to you directly.
Okay. Can you
No. No. Maybe our staff could give you a call, and maybe we can figure out how you can do it via phone. Let's do that. Okay. So I apologize on behalf of Lila. I feel horrible about this. And obviously it shows the wireless issues we face in Philadelphia. I would like to ask our lawmakers to respond now to what you heard from the students and their questions and their statements. And Congressman Evans, I want to start with you because you're the highest ranking elected official with us today, and you've been fighting around education issues for so long. It would be really great to hear your feedback.
I thank you, Donna. And one, I want to compliment PCY for connecting this with the young people and the various elected officials. I see you got the chairman of education, Jim Roebuck, Senator Williams, State Rep Donna Bullock, Elizabeth Feld, I saw Senator Street, Senator Haywood. And what's significant about this, which should be explained to the young people, is the distinction between the federal government and the state government. Because those two initiatives I described as the CARES bill and the HEROES bill, basically, and I saw Councilwoman Parker, I'm gonna educate you, not shifting responsibility, but we vote for money that is then decided by the state and the city for distribution. Understand that very clearly. We vote for the money. But I'm giving you a specific example of one of the first bills I introduced, which I'm still working on, is your physical facilities. Your physical facilities are extremely old. I saw something that the President of the United States, who's an occupant, who did. He took an old post office building and renovated it to be a hotel. Well, the committee that I sit on is the Ways and Means Committee. And that's done by the Historical Tax Credit, which is a program that the state uses. And the first thing I said, that the facilities that people are operating in need to be up-tuned. Now, I know the state has also have their initiative, and you got Representative Roebuck and Representative Donna Bullock is on the Appropriation Committee. What's important about this, Donna, since you are into the education, it's great for them to learn the academics, but also learn the civic education side of it. For them to know each person that is on this call. For example, knowing that Donna Bullock is on the Appropriation Committee. And that means a great deal in terms of what happened. When you talked about that budget they just passed, I talked to Senator Hughes the other day, and they did a great thing getting that budget done as early as they did. But I want them to understand. So I focused on facilities. That's what I focused on. That was the narrow area that I focused on. In the committee I'm on, health is also that I focus on. And then working families, when I heard that, that's what I focus on. So all those things are a part of the built-in environment that I heard one of the students talk about. Because it's very difficult to go to school if you're not straight about your housing, if you're renting or buying. One of the huge things, and I keep saying Representative Donna Bullock, because in the 5th Councilmanic District, which is the President of City Council, and the 3rd district, which is West Philly, where Representative Roebuck and Senator Williams, they had the greatest needs on public housing. So it is very important to understand that you can talk about school, but you can't talk about school in isolation. If you don't talk about housing and talk about public health care, all those things are interconnected. So this conversation for the students should be more than just, you're talking about education, but you're really talking about the communities people come from. The communities have a great deal to do with how learning takes place. In other words, the social determining factors will affect how a parent or a child and what takes place in the school. So the schools don't work in isolation. The schools work, they gotta have housing, gotta have jobs, gotta be safe. You gotta have those elements that are all connected. So in this conversation, I would hope that everybody would broaden it to understand that we all are collective. And you got a great delegation of members. I know them all. I've dealt with them through my office and vice versa. So what we're attempting to do, and I'm gonna say this, we had a hearing on Wednesday, and the hearing talked about the impact that is affecting people of color, African Americans, Latino, Asians, you name it. You go through the list, Native Americans. So I'm saying to you, we just can't talk about it in isolation unless all of these members together, that there's a collective vision, right? And then where the federal government comes in is the two initiatives I told you about, the CARES and the HEROES Act. They have been funding, because one of the things we got to do protect states and cities about is not having cutbacks. Cutbacks will only augment the problem and in return affect public education. Because if a mom and a dad and somebody's out of work, it's going to be a little difficult to talk about this. So I know I took a little long, but I tried to incorporate all four questions to get people to understand that through what you're doing here with PCCY, I'm very impressed by the players you all have who are on the Zoom. And I hope every student who's asking questions to each one of us on this, everybody got a role. Nobody on this Zoom is by themselves. I'm talking about those who are elected, those who are not elected. The only thing I would encourage you to do is, where is the private sector, which has a responsibility? Because these students at one time will go work somewhere or be entrepreneurs. They're gonna go work or they're gonna be entrepreneurs.
Let me actually use that as an opportunity to say, I want to tell the students and also the many lawmakers who are here, two pieces of news about the private sector today. Now they're small, but they're hopeful. Strawberry Mansion just got a grant from Vans Shoes for arts programs in their school. Behind me are arts prints from our schools. So I agree, we need to galvanize more private sector support, and Strawberry Mansion is in Representative Bullock's district. In addition, the University of Pennsylvania last night announced for rising seniors that 2,500 students will be given free access to online courses this summer. So there's extraordinary new partnership with Penn. So I see Imere clapping his hands. And we all know that lots of people step forward for the technology purchases, but there's much more to do. And I really applaud you calling out the need for the private sector leadership to be partners in this. And you really spoke to the community stresses that the students, particularly Doha, began with, right? In terms of the experiences of the parents in her community. I would like to turn, if it's okay, to speak with our great Senate delegation. I'm going to start with Senator Williams first, because I think he is the senior member of the folks who are with us right now.
That's a nice way to say I'm old, but that's fine. I'll take it. That's good. So I heard 4 questions, and thank you, Donna, and thank you, PCCY, and all the students for being so attentive and so patient in their response. I want to get to the meat of it, because you asked 4 questions. I want to respond to each one. But before that, I want to give a context, because there's a lot of history in terms of what you see in front of you. Many of the stories that you as students talk about, I live in that. So I don't want there to ever you to feel, and many of the members who are on this call, particularly those who are Black and brown, who grew up in a certain neighborhood in Philadelphia, have experienced, unfortunately, some of the things you all have experienced. My mom was a public school teacher. My father was a first generation person going to college, Penn State. My friend, Mr. Williams, Boys Latin is in my district, literally a quarter mile from my home. The house I grew up in, that neighborhood, which is Southwest Philadelphia, which has its challenges. It's the house I grew up in. I chose to move back in to help my community after I got my education. And so many of these stories are heartening that you are fighting through the challenges, but nonetheless, they still shouldn't be challenges. So I'm glad you all are advocating and ask us direct questions about that. And Donna, I'm glad you brought to their attention, we did pass a budget. It doesn't cut public education funding this year. But that said, we still were behind. And so while we haven't lost money, we haven't gained money. But to the first question, which I think is really important, that was about, in effect, the cleanliness of the schools in preparation for moving in. Through Congressman Evans and our regional Congress delegation, we have almost $3 billion we will spend in coronavirus money this year before the end of the year. Each county, and I see the councilman there, we're sending millions of dollars to each county specifically to make sure that schools are prepared for you to return in a safe way if that's what's going to happen. So you can be clear that they will be sanitized. We still have some challenges when it comes to asbestos. We have not forgotten that challenge. I think some of that money will be spent on that as well. So we do have good news to report on that. The second question was about online learning and the impact upon that. I'm not necessarily a fan of online learning by itself. If you have a constructed household, somebody who knows how to use it, homeschooling, those things are very impactful and they do give you some level of independence. But we have a long way to go in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania when it comes to just allowing us to say, in this pandemic, we expect you to move forward academically. And so I think we will continue to use it. It's opened our eyes to that possibility, but I don't think we will be totally dependent upon it. To my friend who asked about the 20% or so that don't have the ability to have the internet. So therefore, they have not been educated at all. They've been closed out of the process. And that question about fighting for you. So the money is one thing, but the other thing, frankly, I think the Congressman brought it up and Donna brought up, we have a long way to go with the private sector and public education. Historically, public education was created out of the private sector for the need for a workforce. For some reason, that has changed and the government just funds it through your taxes. The next wave, frankly, is in this space of internet. We have a corporation, one of the largest in the world, in Philadelphia. We shouldn't have an issue with anyone not having internet in Philadelphia for free. That's the least that that company can do. And I'm saying that publicly to you all, not to criticize it, but to be very direct. You all should be advocating as students that Comcast needs to give up free internet, period. No exceptions, no compromises. They got a lot of tax breaks to come to Philadelphia to build that location. Now it's their time to, matter of fact, I think, Donna, you were part of the administration when we negotiated that deal, which was a great deal, but nonetheless, they got a lot of money to do it. They should be giving back to us. The universities have hotspots, and I'm glad Penn is involved in giving online opportunities, but they should be involved in giving up the hotspots. Drexel, Temple, Penn, those kind of places are doing that. So hopefully I responded quickly and succinctly to the 4 questions that were asked.
Super job. Thank you so much. Is Senator Tartaglione on? I can't see her. Okay, so
This is Senator Street. I just wanted to jump in if I could.
Okay.
Because I've actually got to get on a call with Senator Tartaglione.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, with Senator Tartaglione on another call, which is where she's chairing that other call. So that's probably why she's not on. But one, I want to thank all the students for setting this up, for participating. I want to thank PCCY, and I want to, and you, Ms. Cooper, for all the work you've done over the years as an advocate. I also want to take a chance to respond to the questions, and we'll be succinct because Senator Williams and I are in the same caucus and we're working on a lot of the same initiatives, but we'll share my perspective, and some of it will be echoing his sentiment. One, with respect to the cleanliness of schools, absolutely you should go into clean schools, but moreover, your school should not only be clean, but they should be safe. And the issue, and I'm talking about being medically safe. They should be medically safe in that you should not have to worry about lead and asbestos. You should not be worried that the air that you breathe or the water you drink is contaminated when you're in school. And we've found that lead and asbestos are comorbidities for COVID because children, the children who have had problems with it, young people who have had problems, have been those who've had asbestos, have had asthma, and so we must and we will use some of the money that we've had to eliminate the problems around COVID which now sort of become interspersed with the problems we already had around lead to address the comorbidities around breathing issues. So I expect and have that your schools will be both. We'll have taken major steps, and we have remediated the lead and asbestos issues so that you don't have schools shut down for lead and asbestos. We won't have completely eliminated it because the problem didn't just start and won't have. But we'll have eliminated the immediacy of the problem, and long term we have to get that stuff out of there. Secondly, your school should also be physically safe, and that's why. And unfortunately, this is a little bit more challenging because right now the General Assembly won't allow us to pass the kinds of responsible gun laws we need, but there are just too many guns, and whether it's shooting drop one at a day, one child at a time, or it's a mass shooting, young people shouldn't have to worry about getting shot. So you should be both safe medically and safe physically going to schools. I'm committed to that and believe that we are coming close to getting some resolution on the medical side. Unfortunately, we've got a long way to go, and it's going to be a long fight on the issue around guns. The other issue was on bridging the digital divide. I agree that both Comcast, Temple, Penn, Drexel, and all of our universities should work collaboratively to make sure that every student can access the internet, because it is now an essential tool to learning. Even before COVID, and COVID just brought this to a lot of people's attention, you are at a substantial disadvantage because many students are required to submit things online. So you have some students who can sit in their household, work on stuff and submit it online. Other people are having to go to libraries or go to Starbucks or other places in order to access the internet. That shouldn't happen. It was a disadvantage before. We now realize we had to do distance learning. It's an untenable one. And I'm committed to working with my colleagues and all of the great institutions in Philadelphia, in a city, in the fifth largest city in America, fourth largest metropolitan area. We shouldn't have a problem making sure that young people can access the internet. We certainly committed enough resources in that regard. And I will say this: look, there needs to be a basic sense of equity and the way we spend money. And I am proud that every year I've been in the legislature, we've increased funding to education. This year, during the pandemic, we're going to hold harmless, but our schools are still underfunded, and we shouldn't spend 3 times more educating children across the county line than we do inside the city. And believe it or not, there are some parts of the state in the areas where kids we spend even less than we do in Philadelphia. And it's outrageous. The right to an education, which is required in our Constitution, we require to provide a thorough and efficient education to every student, should be an equal education, an equal education. And equal means we should spend equal money, we should have equal access to resources, and if anything, in areas where parents have less, we should spend more, not spend more where the parents already have more, because equity is making sure that everyone has an equal opportunity. And equality is making sure that we each do things equally. We are nowhere near equality, and we haven't even begun a real conversation around equity. And I think we need to do that and move forward in that regard. So I'm encouraged to see young people willing to be committed and engaged. And look, for all you young people old enough to vote, you should vote. We've got state legislators up for election this year. We've got state house, all the state house, half of the state senate, all of our congressional delegation, the Attorney General, the Auditor General, the Treasurer, and the President of the United States. And I was pleased that my first year of voting, I got a chance to vote for Bill Clinton for president, and it did change things, because I came up at a time coming out of school where we had 8 years of Reagan and 4 years of Bush, and things looked pretty bleak in terms of the federal government actually providing some real assistance. But that year turned out that it was a turning point, and things got better for a period, and then of course they got worse. But voting can make a difference, and it was because we had a huge number of 18-year-olds come out to vote that we elected Bill Clinton. It was a huge number of 18-year-olds that came out to vote that elected Barack Obama. And I think we're a better country and a better democracy when young people get engaged, because you push us to be our best. You don't accept excuses about what things already have been. I'm apologize because I've got to get on another call, but I'm just really encouraged to everybody
Thank you
for
so
being
much.
able.
And Senator Sharif Street, I want to say that one of the students wrote in earlier on the chat about their desire to vote and the fact that their student ID won't be accepted on SEPTA. I think that's what they're writing, so that they can get to one of the fewer polling places. So we obviously have some work to do to make sure we remove that barrier. I want to say right now,
I will work with SEPTA to get that, to try and get that change for election. So and you can, anyone who want to reach my office, we can be reached at 215-227-6161, or on you can get information from us.
Put that in the chat because we're going to move on. Is that all right?
I'll put it in the chat. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Any lawmaker that wants to answer student questions in the chat, please do so. We're going to call on each lawmaker, and also put your contact info. Right now, I want to take the sort of liberty as the MC to thank Dr. Hite for being with us. I want to give Dr. Hite a chance to thank the students for being here. Just sort of wave and give us an update.
Yeah, so hello everybody, and thanks Donna and PCCY for putting on this event, and thanks to all of the students who have joined today as well. I want to thank all of the legislators who are on, particularly from the state, and the action that you did to maintain current levels of funding. That is going to be really helpful to us. But to all of the young people who are on the call, I want to thank you for your advocacy. And I heard the back end of the front end of Senator Street's remarks, and one thing I think is really important: schools should not only be clean and safe, they also need to be adequate. And adequacy means that they are adequately equipped, you have adequate programming that is responsive to your interests, and that all of what you want to pursue is available to you at that place. But I want to thank all of you for being here and advocating. I'm going to give a shout out to Imere and Doha, who are our student board members, but Doha in particular, who led a voting registration effort that won Lincoln High School participation in Michelle Obama's after prom or prom party. So Doha, congratulations to you and the other students at Lincoln as well. But to all the students here today, thank you so much for your advocacy. Your voice matters, and listening to Senator Street and all of the others, your vote also matters. So get registered, make sure you participate, and thank you for advocating on behalf of the school district. I think together, adults, citizens, elected officials, staff, but most importantly, students, if we're all together in this, we can really make a difference. So thank you once again. I'm not able to stay as well, but I just wanted to jump on and say thank you to all of you who are here.
Dr. Hite, I know that all of us are very concerned about the extraordinary burden on your shoulder at this hard time. And so fitting it in to come in and say thank you to the students, we're just eternally grateful for that. And we stand behind you in your effort to try and figure out how to get quality education to our kids now and in the next school year. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
I am going to take the liberty of asking a State House member who was the first one to sign on this morning to now address the students. Representative Donna Bullock, thank you.
Great, thank you, Donna, and thank you to everyone who's here. I want to echo the sentiments from Congressman Evans and our senators who have so eloquently said all of the efforts that we have done from the state and the federal level to make sure we're funding schools appropriately and make sure we're responding to the needs of our students. I am a parent of a student who will be entering engineering and science middle school next year. I'm really excited to see him grow in that school. But I also understand a lot of the concerns around lead, as my younger son was exposed to lead at a very early age. And so these are all issues that, as Senator Williams explained, many of us have experienced personally, either as parents or as students back in the day. You know, so we talk a lot and we understand those experiences and we bring those experiences to our job. I want to let you know that as a member of the Governor's School Safety and Security Committee, a committee that was created in response to gun violence in schools, and particularly mass shootings at schools. We have also recognized the need to address safety in the other sense, which is around that lead and asbestos issues. That committee had been allocated some funding from the CARES Act in our budget process this week, and we will be looking at how we distribute funds to the school districts to address lead and asbestos, as well as other security issues and safety issues that our students are experiencing. What I know, as most parents would tell you they know, and anyone who's been through school will tell you, is that we know that education is the key. I believe Imere or someone had quoted Malcolm X's quote. You know, that quote sits at the front of my door, and when my boys leave to go to school, they are required to read it to understand that education is the key and is the passport to their future. And we want them to know that. I want every child to know that. I say that when I got elected, I wanted every child to have the same opportunities that my boys have, and that every child should feel safe, every child should feel like they have a quality education, and that the adults around them care about them. And so as you and your peers and your siblings return to school next year, we want to make sure you feel safe. We will work with Dr. Hite, Secretary Pedro Rivera, who's the State Education Secretary, to determine what those guidelines look like, to make sure that students are practicing social distancing if that's what's needed, to make sure students are aware of the mental health and other support services that are available. And I want to thank Dr. Hite and Ms. Wilkerson and the school board for putting together the hotline for students to call, because this is a very different time and no one was prepared to be at home and isolated with their family for weeks on end. And I love my boys, but trust me, I need a break from them just as much. I'm sure they need a break from me. And you know, being isolated in the same household with the same folk for weeks on end can be very draining emotionally. And I know, like, my little one is saying, Mom, I just want to go back to school. It is too overwhelming to get on a Zoom after Zoom after Zoom. And he's only in 3rd grade and he is exhausted by the entire process. And as much support as I offer him, I can only imagine what our students who may not have all of those family supports, who may be looking after another young sibling. He has a classmate who gets on, and he's in the 3rd grade, and they get on the Zoom meeting, and that classmate is taking care of another younger sibling while he's trying to participate in his Zoom class. This is not how students should learn. And we recognize that even with those challenges, Lila, even though you have the internet, our broadband system sucks in Philly that you are getting, you can't even connect because the broadband width is not strong. That should not happen. So we are so proud of you. I want to say that. All of our students, I'm so proud to see the resilience and the strength and the creativity that you have brought to this time, that you've gotten on your Zoom and your Google Classrooms, and you're going to the libraries or wherever you need to go to make this work. And many of you who are graduating and going to college, I'm so proud of you. Know that the grown-ups around you are working hard to make sure all of your classmates and friends and siblings are going to be successful. And we need you to also help us figure out what are the support systems that you need. But know that we are working hard every day. I know Councilwoman Cheryl Parker and everyone on this call has been thinking about how we can serve our young people. And so I want to say thank you to PCCY and thank you to all of the students. I do have to also move on and actually check in on one of those kids who's, I think, sleeping or playing on YouTube instead of doing his schoolwork right now. But I want to appreciate all of you for doing what you're doing, for being on today's call, and for being the student leaders that you are, but also for, you know, taking care of yourselves and your families at a time that we could have never planned for. Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you so much. And Representative Bullock was joined here today by Representative Fiedler and Representative Donna Tucci. Representative Fiedler just went to do food distribution. Representative Donna Tucci just went to a candidate forum for her re-election. So I do need to go back and ask Senator Haywood if he'd like to make a brief comment. He has been entering in the chat his desire to solve this internet issue for the students. Senator Haywood, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. And thank you so much for allowing me to get on. I really am proud of these students as well. My video is not working, but that has nothing to do with the internet, I believe. I think it has all to do with my computer. It's easier to blame the computer than myself. But these students are resilient, strong. We have heard you, but we, as Senator Williams and others have said, we've also had some of the same experiences. I do want to say specifically two things. One, in terms of access to internet, I reached out by letter to the CEO of Comcast and the CEO of Verizon back in the beginning of the pandemic when everything was closed down. Told them they needed to make internet access available for all students across the region. I got a direct response from Verizon that they didn't see a way they could do so, and pretty much got no response from Comcast. I did see a response on the chat that Verizon has made some attempt to do so, but clearly whatever they've done is insufficient, as we have experienced in the Zoom call that we're currently in, where the student was not able to say what she wanted to say in a way that we could hear it. So we talked about companies stepping up. Those are two companies that have capacity to step up to provide free broadband internet to our students, particularly during the pandemic. And unfortunately, in my experience, they have not. Second thing I'd like to say very briefly is we need you students dramatically. You have described how far we need to go, where we are and where we need to get. My experience in government, which hasn't been long in the state Senate, is we can only get there with your support. We cannot win without your votes. And let me be extremely clear. We cannot win without your support, and that includes voting. You have a part to play in getting the outcome that you seek. You not just adding your voice as you have done so today, which is excellent, but there's power, there's decisions that have to be made, and decisions that are made by the ones who are in power. Let me repeat that. Decisions have to be made, and the decisions are made by those who are in power. The more people who are in power who agree with you, the more likely we are able to get what we want. We need you. This cannot happen by throwing the ball down the field to the elected officials and thinking that we're going to end up running for a touchdown. We need you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And Senator Haywood, I hope you wouldn't mind if I also say to the students that you probably might have also mentioned that we need everybody to answer the census.
Most definitely.
Yes. And so if your household has not yet done the census online, you can still do so. We will enter stuff into the chat while we're here, but we're also on Facebook Live. So it's real important. School funding from the federal government. And people are asking, does the federal government put in mental health counseling for schools? Federal government basically gives a block grant to our schools based on the number of low-income children who attend those schools. And that number is calculated by the census. So if we want more federal support, we need a robust response for the census. And so now the state gets into the play in its own appropriation. And one of the key players in that is Representative Jim Robach, the minority chair of the House Education Committee. Representative Robach, we'd love to hear your brief comments.
Sure, thank you very much. I'm very happy for this program and this discussion. And I just wanted to make a couple of observations. You're talking about technology and access to internet. That's not just a Philadelphia problem, that's a statewide problem. I'm always reminded of a colleague I had from the up in Tioga County when I first went to Harrisburg, Ed Carlson. He used to tell me the story about on election evening, he had to drive to the southern part of his county to pick up election returns. I used to think he was playing with me, that he was just kidding me. But that's a problem across broad areas of the state, and it suggests that there ought to be a common effort, not only from Philadelphia or from others, but linking us with those who represent the northern tier of the state. because they have the same problems we have, and we work together, we ought to be able to address that problem and hopefully improve access to internet for not only those of us in Philadelphia, but across the entire state. I would also like to just talk a little bit about the issues of how we follow up from the COVID virus in terms of the issue of how we make our schools safe in terms of clean schools or schools that are disinfected, but also that is an issue that needs immediate attention. It can't be a one-shot deal. We have to, in Philadelphia, make sure that our schools are clean on a regular basis. I find particular sensitivity to that. My wife was a school teacher. She taught at Nevinger and at Meredith. Her best friend is this teacher who came forward some months back for having been infected at that school. My wife, in fact, died from lung cancer. And I wonder what the link here is here. But the reality is we've got to do a better job in addressing toxic schools and make sure that our schools are safe. I might then just make one further observation. I'm a product of Philadelphia Public Schools. I'm a Central graduate, and I admit I was not a good student in high school. But I do say this about my education. I got a strong education that gave me, I won't say it made college easy, but it made college about, it opened up the ability for me to go through college in 3.5 years and graduate with honors and gain admission to a strong graduate program at the University of Virginia. So, I mean, I think that all this fits together. And one of the things I have to say is we need to do a better job of getting students to take challenging courses, know that they can do that and succeed. And that to me is the most important thing we can do. We need to get students to recognize the strength of a diverse education. And that's also important. So if anything, I think I'm a product of a good program that got me into a good graduate program and helped me to be a successful legislator and for years a successful college teacher at Drexel University.
Thank you. I think that you echoed the comments of Ranim about the role that her counselor played in really helping her understand the importance of taking a full course load that prepares you.
Absolutely.
I want to make sure that the students who are on and listening on Facebook know that the school board is accepting applications for new student representatives until June 5th. So if you go on the school district's website, if you're inspired by the leadership you see here today and you want to take Imere and Doha's place, please apply on the Board of Ed website by June 5th. Actually, a young leader who worked his way up in public schools and is now a very powerful leader in the Pennsylvania legislature is Representative Harris. Representative Harris, do you have comments for the students?
Yes. First of all, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for having me. I noticed on Facebook, so don't nobody clown me for not having a haircut. The barbershops is closed. I ain't got a cut in 3 months, so I'm struggling. And I'm honest, I'm in my apartment in Harrisburg. I'm about to leave here. We were in session literally until 11 o'clock last night. But I'm very grateful for all of the leaders that were here and who are still here. And for all of the young people. As stated, I was involved in student government at the high school level, at the college level, and now I serve as an elected official. So, I want you guys to understand that the advocacy and the work that you're doing, one, does not go unnoticed, and two, you have an opportunity to not just be involved in high school, but college and beyond. We get the government that we get involved to create. And I think it's extremely important that we don't just, I'm not going to tell you just to vote. I'm going to tell you to vote, but I'm also going to tell you to run for office. I'm going to tell you to, volunteer on the campaign. I'm going to tell you to work for an elected official. I'm going to tell you to help create policy. But I'm also going to tell you to pick up that phone that you have in your hand and use Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and Snapchat and TikTok and all of these other things to also help get the message out to your friends about the issues that are important to you, and also use those devices to connect with your elected officials so that we know that those issues are important to you. What I can say about some of the things that we've just recently done with regards to COVID-19, one of the issues that I know is going to be a big problem is for a lot of our folks who are going into the 12th grade next year, who are going to be looking to go to college. They're going to be at a steep disadvantage because of all of the in-person education that was missing. So in this CARES Act money, there's actually $5 million for a program that's near and dear to my heart, which is called Act 101. I got into Millersville University through the Act 101 program, and funding has been cut for that severely in many years, and we were able to get $5 million into that. So that's going to help young people who are trying to go to college, who may need a little bit more help, like a summer bridge. Those resources will go to help them. So we're excited about that. As some of my other colleagues talked about, resources that could come to the schools to help them with cleaning and with preparing for our young people to come back. But I do want to talk about the internet piece real quickly. I do think that internet is essential, and I think that it's a public good, and we should be working together to find out how we get to that place. There's no way, in my view, that you can be successful in many things, whether it's in school, whether it's in work, be an entrepreneur, what have you, without having internet access. So we have to look at it as an essential need. Think about it this way. What if you didn't have internet? How would you know if your county was in green or yellow or red? How would you know what the CDC guidelines are? Many of us are getting our information from the internet, whether it's through CNN or NBC on the internet, or whether it's a streaming service, and that's how you get your television service, through a streaming service. Internet is essential, and we need to treat it as such. So I'm extremely proud of all of you young people for all of the good things. I put in the chat, but I'll say it. If you want to reach out to me, you can follow me on Instagram, Jordan A. Harris on Instagram. You can follow me on Facebook, Rep. Jordan Harris, or you can call the office. But anything that I can do to be supportive and helpful in all of your endeavors, please don't forget to reach out. Thank you so much to PCCY and for all of the great advocates who continue to help our young people become the dreamers and give them the ability to live their dreams into reality. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Representative Harris. And I know that you have been a champion to improve the quality of our schools for every student, and that's so important and speaks to the many issues that the students raised here today. So I want to now turn to former Representative Sherelle Parker, now City Council person Sherelle Parker, somebody who many times when there was a chance of Philadelphia School District being cut, she drew the line and made sure that her Republican colleagues in the House did not act on a budget that made the situation in Philadelphia worse for our students. And so we are indebted to her leadership. And now she's on our city council as the I forget how the council titles are for the leadership.
It's ceremonial. It's just ceremonial.
Ceremonial.
Anything. Doesn't mean anything.
The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so very much. I want to start off by saying to the students that you took me back on a stroll through my own life. You know, sometimes as students, you look at people who are elected to public office, you hear people calling them the honorable or congressman or state rep or council person, and it seems to be so big, and they seem to be so special. But I want you to remember that we are you. I come from where you come from. When I hear you talk about Ranim, and several of you mentioned that you're going to be first generation college attendees in your family, I was a first generation college attendee, and I'm a product from very humble beginnings. And growing up for me, and now I'm going to date myself. If Congressman Evans said the first time he voted, because I want you to get the span of the generations that are on this line. Congressman Evans said the first time time he voted was 1972. 1972 is the year I was born. Okay, and I want to give you some sort of context about the socioeconomic status that I grew up in, because it's very important. How many of you, and just raise your hands if you've heard of this, how many of you have remember a family on television called the Cosby Family? If you are familiar with that family, just raise your hand. Okay, how many of you have ever heard of the Evans family from Good Times? If you know that family, raise your hand. Only a few. Okay, now I'm really going back. Now, Joyce and Donna and Dwight remember this family, but if you do, it shows you watch some of the old shows like I like. How many of you remember the Beaver family? From Leave It to Beaver, there was Wild and the Beav and June, the mother. Well, I like to describe the way I grew up is that I grew up less like the Cosby family, more like the Evans family on Good Times, except I didn't live in a high rise in public housing. I lived in a row house on a 1900 block of Penfield Street in West Oak Lane. And my grandparents raised me. So when I heard you, Imere, I'm not sure if it was you or Ranim, when as Representative Bullock said, you quoted Malcolm X's statement relative to education being the passport for the future. I'm a firm believer in that, because access to quality education is the only tool that will help to close the gap between the haves and the have-nots. You see, it doesn't matter what zip code that you live in. It doesn't matter how wealthy your family is. If you work hard in accessing public education and taking it seriously, you should have the opportunity to read, write, think, speak, compute at a level that will allow you to compete in our global society and our global economy. And if Congressman Evans, who mentioned the Ways and Means Committee from the federal government, if we have him fighting to deliver for us, and then we have what the state legislators have just done, and they get a bad rap sometimes because they work in a different environment than we work in. I was only there for 10 years. Joyce and Dr. Hite, and it was only long enough to find my way to the bathroom. But I learned just a little teeny bit when I was there. For them to have left the Capitol and have Philadelphia being held harmless, so that the cuts that were going to have to be potentially made if they had not been successful in ensuring that those dollars were in the budget, it would have been catastrophic. Right? Even worse than where we find ourselves right now. Now, when I see Joyce Wilkinson, I'm happy to see her as the chair of a locally controlled school district of Philadelphia. Am I happy about the amount of revenue that the city of Philadelphia has contributed from a local government perspective? Yes, I am. I also thank the state, because this is why you got to pay attention from a civics perspective. Because the federal government sent revenues to the states along with local government, and we're working on some flexibility with the next package. And because the state legislators were able to do what they needed to do, guess what we as a city no longer have to contend with? We were proposing, well, the mayor was proposing that we would have to increase real estate taxes to make a contribution to the school district of Philadelphia in addition to what we fund, so that we can make sure that those cuts, draconian cuts, did not have to take place. But because of the state's work, that increase in real estate taxes, it's off the table. Why should that be important to you? Because we don't have to increase real estate taxes. That means many of your parents and caregivers who are struggling with employment, they're struggling to make ends meet. Now, that whatever disposable income they would have had to use in order to make that payment, they now get an opportunity to make an investment in another area, hopefully that will help with you. So what I want to say to you is this, in addition to that, with the digital divide, I want to say this to you. I want you to be committed to closing the gap between the haves and the have-nots. I want you to remember that no matter your race, your class, your socioeconomic status, that as long as you stay focused on taking advantage of every opportunity that is presented to you, there is no one that can stop you from obtaining what it is that you want to do in life. And as it relates to that digital divide, this is why you have to take this seriously. It's not just hurting us in public education, but small businesses on neighborhood commercial corridors. When Congressman Evans and the rest of his team were fighting for revenue for us from the federal government, small businesses in Philadelphia couldn't access those dollars because they didn't have access to technology. So it hurt small businesses in neighborhoods. Let me tell you who else it hurt. It also hurt Philadelphians when it came to getting registered to vote by mail. You want me to tell you why? Because not everybody had access to the internet and or the computer so that they could go online and in essence request a mail-in ballot. So we have to look at this not just from the perspective of education, but we have to look at it across the board. The final thing I want to say to you is this, and Donna, you know that this is something that's near and dear to my heart. And I think you heard Rep. Roebuck, he touched on this. The digital divide is not only an issue here in the city of Philadelphia, but it is extremely important across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We have to form alliances with people who don't expect us to have a relationship with others. What does that mean? All of you talented and dynamic students who are online today, I would love for you to connect with students who are in school districts also suffering from the digital divide, but who live in rural Pennsylvania. Who would ever think that you urban students will understand the importance of forming a relationship with people who live in regions whose challenges are totally the opposite and different from yours? I think Donna, I think the school board, I think that there are vehicles that can put you as students in contact with other students to begin to advocate. And that I think it was Daniyah, you said something that touched my heart. When you talked about having a voice, that's what your teachers, your counselors, what they helped you to know that you had a voice and all of the activities that you participated in. When we do what we need to do as elected officials, our job is to ensure that the school district is funding at a level that allows your teachers and your administrators to focus on education and not just providing an education, but a quality one that gives you access to the skill set to compete. When we do what we do and we do it right, you have the opportunity to access everything that you need in order to move forward. I will put my contact information there. You filled me up. I'm a student government student as well, a graduate of Lincoln University, along with the University of Pennsylvania for graduate school. And it really just filled me up to know that each and every one of you know that your voice can help all of the students in the school district of Philadelphia. Pretty proud of you. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Councilwoman Parker. I think you probably never had the experience where you didn't have a voice based on your performance, but thank you so much, and what a great idea. And we will take you up on creating a rural-urban partnership to close the digital divide among our students. We can easily do that, and it's a great idea. Now, I want to make sure people know that Representative Mary Isaacson was also with us today, and we are just so proud of the number of people who wanted to come and listen to the students. Congressman Evans, we have a choice. I would like you to close this event. Lilla has yet to make her statement, and she's on the phone. Shall we listen to Lilla and then you close, or shall we listen to you and then Lilla closes?
Listen to Lilla.
Okay, Lilla, the floor is yours.
Hi everyone, my name is Lilla. I go to Science Leadership Academy. I am a sophomore. I have had the amazing opportunity to participate in both middle school and high school debate. It has truly helped me grow and improve both inside and outside of school. Debate has helped me improve my public speaking skills. I have also had the ability to learn about and research topics that I might not otherwise have been exposed to. This has helped me develop my critical thinking skills, which are so important in the world we live in today. All around, debate has truly been a highlight of my high school experience. This school year, my teammate and I had to work to find a new debate coach. This turned out to be harder than expected. It took us almost a month. We then worked to grow and strengthen the team. This taught us that perseverance pays off. Debate has made me more excited about going to school every day. I want all students to have the life-changing experience of joining an extracurricular that they truly love and learn from. With the extreme budget cuts, this may not be possible for most students. We all know that there are opportunity gaps in Philadelphia, and it can't be that only certain schools and certain students have the opportunity to participate in extracurricular activities like debate.
Thank you, Lilla. How do you say your first name?
It's Lilla.
Lilla, thank you, Lilla.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
You know, again, you've made such a critical point about school being more than the academics in the classroom, although I'm hoping that they have great meaning to you as well, but I really appreciate you bringing that up. So I want to say that Congressman Evans, at the top of the meeting here, talked about the HEROES Act, and the U.S. Senate has yet to act on that. And when we act on a civic space, we sometimes have to take action right away. So I would ask everybody that's here with us today on the internet, on Facebook, on Zoom, to make sure that you call Senator Toomey and Casey's office to make sure that they vote for the HEROES Act, because that will put extraordinary new resources on the table for our schools to meet these critical needs. We have a U.S. Senate that is controlled by the Republican majority. We are a nonpartisan organization, but they have yet to move the HEROES Act. So it's very important that Senator Toomey particularly hear from you, but also Senator Casey can use the support from all of us as well to know that we think this is important. So we urge you to take that political action, civic action today. And with that, as appropriate, I would like to ask Congressman Evans to make the closing comments for today's Teen Town Hall in Philadelphia, sponsored by PCCY.
First, Donna, I want to thank PCCY. Thank you, and thank you for your leadership. And say to everybody who is on this Zoom, the young people, the elected officials, that we're all in this together. And this is our democracy. It's our democracy. You know, we work for you. And be very conscious of that. So take that role, as you heard Councilwoman Sherelle Parker express to you, as she has learned, and I've watched her, like Leslie Odoms, I watched him too. I only shared to you, you see what can happen. So I especially want to say to you, be relentless. Don't give up. Don't let anybody tell you what is not possible. So stick with it. Don't accept no. Do not accept no. Even if you got people who disagree with you, stick with it. So what I see here is a collectivism that is long overdue. I'm extremely proud to be the congressman of this particular congressional district. There's 18 congressional districts in Pennsylvania, and I'd like to tell you this is the best. Again, thank you. I appreciate this.
Thank you. And there are some students who joined us on this event organically, so they weren't part of the students that we prepped. And as we bring this event to a close and thank our lawmakers for being here, any student that wants to speak, we are still on Facebook Live for a few more minutes. We are still on Zoom for a few more minutes. So we encourage you to stick with us. Daniyah Scipio-Smith, our great Education Policy Director, will guide you into that speaking, but we encourage students to stay on. We are not done this conversation. We have a long road ahead and we need you to be part of it. Thank you all. Thank you again to the Philadelphia Board of Education, all our elected officials, and stay healthy.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any student who is still on the call who'd like to share their story, please stay with us for a few more minutes. I thought I saw something from Jose. Please stay on.
Yeah, I'll stay here.
We also had, who is the other student?
That is also going to our story a bit too.
Okay.
I see Lynn, Jamil, are you sharing a story as well? Okay.
Yes, actually.
Okay, thanks.
Am I going after Jose or?
Sure. Okay, Dan, do you want to lead the conversation?
Sure. So I guess as of now, we'll go with Jose and then Jamil, and then we'll do Lynn. And if anybody else is hopping on, we can kind of go in that order. So Jose, you want to feel free to start us off? It'll take about a minute or two, and you have some of your lawmakers still on, so feel free to go ahead.
Okay. I wrote this because the question I answered, then I wrote something about my life. It makes sense to the story I made. I would say I fight for my future is because I have helped to know who my family is. There help me. I need it for my future in my life. I am a different person like everyone. I had no friends. I have to thank my family for making me young. Now I am fighting more, but I have more family than I always tell me to continue studying and I can also what I want, and I had to live a longer time, and I don't want to stop because others say I am not good. Here I will continue fighting because we'll all decide it. I have lived along with my family, and we are humble, and that is why I want to be someone of a good for others world that we need so much today.
Great job, Jose. I think you talked a lot about, how the support system is so important, and perseverance and keep fighting through so you can accomplish great things, beyond high school. So great job, Jose. I really appreciate you adding that to the conversation.
Thank you so much, Jose, for joining us and for speaking up.
Yep. So we have Jamil, and then we have Lynn, and we're going to be wrapping up by about 12:40 because there's another event actually coming on right here. So I'll leave it to you two to wrap up. So Jamil.
Thank you. My name is Jamil Duncan. Piggybacking off of what Jose said about life after high school and graduation, one of the things I think is lacking in public schools is effective teaching of writing. And in my experience, even since middle school, writing has not been taught. And if it has been glossed over. And I think that sets students up for failure in the purest form. Unemployment. You're not going to be able to write an effective cover letter or a resume without, having any background in writing, any real experience in writing. And I also think it's important as the elected officials who came and spoke before us, said for us, to be aware and socially active. But I don't think that means much if you aren't aware of what makes America unique. And I think that has a lot to do with constitutional structure, which is again another thing that's not taught in school. We gloss over the Bill of Rights, which is great, but Antonin Scalia and Neil Gorsuch as well. They both call the separation of powers the real Constitution, because Bill of Rights is nice,
City Council.
but someone speaking?
You're okay. Go ahead, Jamil.
All right, thank you. And the Bill of Rights is fine, but without a structure, it means nothing. You look at North Korea, for example. They have a very nice Bill of Rights. Their Bill of Rights guarantees relaxation of all things. The United States Constitution does not. But of course, North Koreans are everything but relaxed, and that is because they lack structure to hold, their government, their dictator accountable. In America, that's impossible because of the constitutional structure. And I think that should be taught because that secures our liberty. So those are my thoughts.
Well, thank you, Jamil. And as an English teacher and a civics teacher until about 2 years ago, I couldn't agree with you more about the importance of those two subject areas in preparing students for, understanding how to be a citizen and then also being productive as a worker following school. So great job. And then we have our last one. Lynn, you want to wrap up, and then we will move forward. Thank you.
Yes. Hello, my name is Lynn Larabi, and I'm a senior at Central High School. I will also be a rising freshman at the University of Pennsylvania. I just want to stress the importance of funding within the school district because whether if it's inner city problems or just simply like creating a safe haven of our schools, it's important to hone in the academic and social aspect of schools because once again, as many of the panelists have mentioned, schools are definitely a safe haven for us students. I've been a part of the School District of Philadelphia, a student there for 13 years, and probably more than that considering that my older sister was also a student at the School District of Philadelphia and my younger siblings, one's at SLA and the other one's going to be at Central. So we've experienced a bunch of the different events that have occurred with the School District of Philadelphia. One of the things that I'll never forget in my public school education was picking up the violin for the first time. In third grade, when at my elementary school Mayfair, we were given the opportunity to play an instrument. And as a first generation student, that was very monumental to me because it wasn't just a simple instrument like holding it in my hand, but it was also being trusted and just being offered another form of guidance other than your like vital subjects and to be expressed like in a whole like other like musical realm that I've never like learned about if it weren't for that opportunity. And these mentors that we have created, whether if it's our music program,
Blaine, I think you have kind of cut out a little bit right there.
and creating these leaders and these initiative takers. Therefore, if it isn't for the funding that the school district provides to establish or to maintain a form of equity within like our students, then these safe havens wouldn't be established. Thank you.
Lynn, thank you very much. Thank you for being so patient, number one. And then number two, thank you for kind of having a perfect ending to the event and covering so much that's important for providing support to students and then making sure that schools can function to prepare students for after their school year. So I want to thank everybody who has joined us today. For any other student who wants to kind of tell their story or reach out to their elected official, feel free to email us at info@pccy.org. We can help to connect you with any of your elected officials. Representative Roebuck, thank you for staying on and listening to these additional stories.
Thank you.
And thank you very much to every elected official who has joined us today. And everybody have a great day and keep fighting for our kids. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.